Welcome to Undoing the Culture of Silence series, episode 2. My name is Anita Adefuye, and I'm your host, as always. And our guest is already here, so I'm going to have her join in. And thank you, Dr. Tayo, for being here, and thanks for accepting to be here. Thank you, Nimi A. Sorry if I murdered that. Okay, so I'm just gonna have our guest add on. Just a second here. Thank you, Zini. So let's see. Hi. Perfect. Hi, good to see you. How you doing? You look good.
Thank you. You too. How are you?
Thanks. I'm good, thank you.
Good.
Thanks again.
Happy Sunday.
Same to you. Good to have you here.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the invite.
All right, awesome. So apparently I found out, it seems to me like there's a time limit on these things. I don't know. So
Okay.
I kind of got kicked out by Instagram last week. The last time I did this, so I wouldn't want that to happen. Thank you, Sunshine Events Planner, for being here. Thank you, Heritage African Art. So we're just gonna jump right in. So if you've seen the posters and stuff go out, you know that this is Dr. Temitayo Aboaba. She's a psychiatrist. She's an associate professor. She is very passionate about women. She is very passionate about health, mental health precisely. And we're going to learn about all of these things today. So whatever your thoughts about mental health, you may or may not have your tables shaking today, but my hope is that you can get something from here that you learn for yourself or for friends and family around you, or people around you. So without much ado, Dr. Tayo, thanks again for being here. So let's start with this. You're a psychiatrist. What does that involve? Because when I hear psychiatrist, there was a time in my life when I heard the word psychiatrist.
Yeah.
I thought about like crazy people, mad people. And I have no doubt that's what some other people think. So what does that mean exactly? What does it entail?
Okay, so a psychiatrist is a medical doctor that they assess, they diagnose, and they treat mental health illnesses. So, when you talk about, does that mean, does that associate with being crazy? Crazy is not a word that I would use when discussing mental health, because all it does is propagate the stigma that already exists around mental health and mental illness and things of that nature. So essentially, they're psychiatrists, they're psychologists. So psychologists are trained in what we call talk therapy or psychotherapy. And there are different forms of psychotherapy that are used in the mental health field. And the psychologists have a lot more training in that than psychiatrists do. Psychiatrists went to medical school, they did the 4 years, and then after they decide what they want to specialize in. And then most, whoever becomes a psychiatrist obviously chose to do psychiatry as their specialty. So that's what it entails. Really assessing things like depression and anxiety are really the most common nowadays, and treating those difficulties and illnesses with approved medication. So yeah, that's the gist of it.
Okay, awesome. I'm glad to hear. Hi, I am Kay. Thank you for being here. Hello, Barack, Sunshine Events Planner. Thank you, the real Amomi Alateju. Thank you all for being here today. Okay, so thank you. So that's what a psychiatrist is, and thank you for that added bonus of a psychologist, because I didn't think to ask that before now, but good call there.
It's good to differentiate, because a lot of people don't know that difference, and that differentiation is important to know. But we all work together. It's a multidisciplinary type of thing that we do. I'm always in contact. We're in contact with the psychologist. They're in contact with us, asking various things to do with any particular patient that they're seeing. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for just joining us. Okay, so you mentioned a psychiatrist diagnoses, treats, and does all that for mental illness. So what exactly does mental illness entail? And is that different from mental health?
Okay, so that's a great question. So mental health is essentially your psychological well-being, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
or an absence of mental illness. So if you have mental health,
Mm-hmm.
that means you're functioning well. If you have mental illness,
Mm-hmm.
there is maybe a rift in your level of functioning. Uh, depending
Mm-hmm.
on what it is, whether it's your mood is affected or you're anxious. So that's mental health or mental wellness is an absence of mental illness. So when you talk about someone functioning in relation to the society that you're living in, or what we call cultural norms. For example,
Mm-hmm.
in the summer, people tend to not wear winter jackets. We're all in our lighter clothes. People wear shorts, sandals, tank tops, or you just lighter
Mm-hmm.
clothing, right? Someone that's maybe not functioning according to social norms, you might see them wearing their winter jacket in the summer, right? Or wearing
Mm-hmm.
four pairs
Yeah.
of pants in the summer, and they're walking
Mm-hmm.
the streets. They might be talking to themselves, so something like that, that gets you to sense that, okay, maybe that person isn't functioning exactly within the social or cultural norms. So I hope
Mm-hmm.
that explains it.
No, for sure, for sure. And the reason I ask is because and this has happened more than once, where once you mention, like I said earlier, once you mention the word mental health, people tend to cringe, and then they tend to think that maybe you're trying to label them or you're trying to stigmatize them or something, right?
Yeah,
And it's a topic we don't want to talk about. Okay,
exactly.
so which is why it's important that we help people understand what that difference is. All right, so if I'm getting what you're saying, is that in the same sense, we would say that you're healthy when there's an absence of sickness in
Right,
a physical sense.
exactly.
Is the same way we can say that you're mentally healthy when there's an absence of mental illness. And that state of being, you know, healthy, mentally speaking, is what we generally refer to as mental health.
Yes.
So people, when next you hear someone say, "How's your mental health?" don't think they're just trying to label you or say something is wrong with you, but maybe it might be out of cure or something, right?
Yeah.
And anyway, so thank you. All right. So the other question that I have is, so if mental health is just a state of well-being, right, and it does not necessarily mean that there is an illness,
Hmm.
mentally speaking,
Right.
then why is it such a hard topic for us to talk about? Especially you're African, I'm African, especially as Africans, you're Christian, I'm Christian, especially within our religious circles.
Yes.
Why is it that people don't want to talk about it? And before you, I just want to say thank you to all who has joined in so far. Dayanu, thank you for being here. Israel, thank you for being here. So, why is it so hard for us to talk about mental health?
So that is a loaded question, Anita. Yeah, that's a loaded
Unpack as you
question.
see as you damn fit.
And I'm gonna take my time to try to answer this one, and I'm gonna take
Okay.
it from just generally talking about mental health and mental wellness. Why is that hard? Then I'm gonna talk about why is it so hard in the cultural
Mm-hmm.
circle. Then I'm gonna talk about why it's so hard in our religious circle.
Okay.
So,
All
mental
right.
health or mental wellness, just standing alone on its own, there is a stigma that already exists about mental illness. People don't want to talk about it. They're worried about being labeled as crazy. That's the word you had used before, right? Which I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
fan of. They're worried that they might lose friends. They might lose family
Mm-hmm.
members. They might lose loved ones. They might lose their jobs. Some people worry about that. They're worried about being ostracized from society. Some people, they've seen those images of people being in straitjackets. I'm sure everyone has seen at least one picture of that, of someone being in a
Mm-hmm.
straitjacket or someone being institutionalized or hospitalized against their will. And shock therapy is another one. We call that ECT, but shock therapy is one of the treatments that has really set the stigma for mental health.
Mm-hmm.
People who they're again institutionalized and they're getting shock therapy, and then they come out and people label them as being vegetables because of what they went through when they were
Mm-hmm.
institutionalized. So there's an array of reasons why that stigma is so strong. Mind you,
Mm-hmm.
nowadays, especially in the Western world where we are right now, it's becoming less and less. don't get me wrong, the stigma is still there, but it is becoming less and less, where people are finding it a little bit easier now to talk about mental health and mental well-being, mental illnesses, getting help for that. The government is throwing so much money into mental health and mental well-being because they really are seeing that it's becoming a problem. So many people are, you know, committing suicide. Just so it's horrible, right? And right now, the stats say that 1 in 5 individuals actually is living with a mental health issue right now. So that's 20% of everyone. That's a significant amount, right? So that answers kind of why the stigma is there, just mental health and mental wellness as a standalone. When we come to cultural norms and our cultural circles, it's again, it's the images that we're used to seeing. I mean, yes, I lived in Nigeria until I was 9. So, I mean, I wasn't that old, but I still remember pictures and images of so-called crazy people, right? That were walking the streets, some of them naked, no clothes on, talking to themselves, unkept, very dirty, you know, they're eating from the gutters, things like that. So that's the image that people see, right? And these people, you know, they've been given up by their loved ones. Nobody really looks after them, right? We don't see that on this side of the world because I guess of course, there's a better system in place, right?
And there are institutions.
When we're talking about the cultural aspect of things and why we find it so difficult, I think those are the images that people see whenever they talk about anything that has to do with mental health or mental wellness. That's what people are seeing, and nobody wants to be that. You know, you don't want to tell anybody that you're having issues with your mental state or your emotions. They might see you as that, or they might be like, oh, you'll end up like that. So I think that's the problem when we're talking about, you know, the social the cultural aspect of things. When we talk about religiosity and spirituality, again, it becomes difficult because I think we're living with this facade that once you are, you know, a spiritual being, or once you are, you have some kind of a religion that you're practicing, that everything is going to be perfect. Everything's going to be okay. You know, both your physical and your mental health is going to be perfect, right? And I think that's what makes it difficult for people to be able to talk about it. And for some, I think it's difficult because they assume that, okay, if I'm for a Christian, for example, then I shouldn't have any problems, you know, or I should be able to pray and pray it away, and it should go away, you know. So I think that's another thing. People don't want to be labeled as being weak, right? People don't want to be labeled as being spiritually weak. That I mean, I've heard preachers and pastors say on the pulpit that, you know, they don't believe in depression, and that depression is not real. And, you know, if you're truly a child of God, then you shouldn't deal with those things.
You can never be depressed.
So it makes, hi Jillian, how are you? Nice to see you. So it makes it really difficult for people to actually want to tell anybody that, you know what, I'm going through this and it's really affecting me and I actually need help. So I hope that explains all 3 aspects of why it's so difficult for people to actually talk about their mental wellness or mental issues.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So people are scared of being labeled, whether it's being labeled as spiritually weak or just mentally weak. And people don't want to seem like the pictures that we've been fed. That is not exactly always an accurate picture of what it looks like. And you're right in, you're right in the fact that, you know, sometimes these are things that have even come from, you know, media is sort of an authority, right, that we believe. And when certain things, either in movies or whatnot, has been projected to us as, you know, if someone is in this state, then this is what they're supposed to be seen as, or the things that growing up, especially, we've been exposed to that isn't exactly even from TV, but people you see on the streets, like might be the experience with some people in Nigeria, right? And I believe Daniel said that people also label them as being possessed in Nigeria, right? And that's not just in Nigeria only. I've talked to a couple of other African countries, or even in some places, and there's this conception that, you know, if you're mentally challenged, then you are spiritually possessed, you know, by a demon or something, right? And so those things keep people from wanting to talk about them. Okay, so we'll get into what we can do then to move the discussion forward. But there's a piece of it that I want us to also talk about, which is trauma and mental health.
Right.
How does trauma affect mental health? You've been at my website, you've read my story.
Yeah.
For those who don't know it yet, it's been, I've said it that I was sexually abused, and for the longest time I struggled mentally speaking with my mental health, and it's been the case with a lot of people who have been in that space with some form of traumatic experience. So, what role exactly does trauma play on mental health?
Okay. First of all, I want to say what a brave person you really are. You're a brave woman to be able to just put that out there and just
Thank you.
and help others who have gone through this. And really, like your entire YouTube channel you just started, your website says it's breaking the silence, because the silence is deafening at times. So
Yeah.
good on you, and I really hope that God will continue to just help you with this platform that you've started, and that you will reach out and help so many others. Going to your question,
Thank you.
mental health and sexual abuse, there is a large positive correlation. And most especially childhood sexual abuse. There's been lots of studies that show that there's been a positive correlation between childhood sexual abuse and mental illness in the adult life. And if you think about it, as a child, your brain isn't matured yet. You still have an underdeveloped brain. It doesn't have the capacity to deal with such an insult and such an assault on both your mind and your body. So you can see how not being able to cope at such a young age can eventually lead to some things not being entirely right when you become an adult. Some people, they go through that experience. There's a lot of repression. They try to forget about it, try to move on until, possibly they come into adulthood, and it could be something small that will trigger that thing, and it just brings it all back up, right? And a lot of patients with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, go through this, right? The shock of the assault keeps everything just silent, and nothing happens. They just repress it. They don't want to deal with it. The mind isn't sharp enough to deal with it, and so they just kind of try to continue on with life until a particular stage in their life, usually in adulthood, something triggers it, and everything just comes back up to the surface, right? And at this point, a lot of people in their lives may not even know that they've gone through such a period, right? And then all of a sudden they're faced with having to tell people, okay, this is what happened to me. I think this is why I'm dealing with this now in this stage of my life. If you look at sexual abuse, I mean, we all have a sense of autonomy over ourselves, over our person. Sexual abuse removes that from you, right? As we're growing up, you're taught how to be your own person. You're taught how to look after yourself. You're taught how to have a sense of dominion over yourself, right? But when someone comes along and removes that forcefully from you, you can see how that can be very detrimental to a person, right?
Exactly.
And so psychologically trying to figure that out, that, okay, what just happened to me? Try to process that. And a lot of sexual abuse is actually people that we know and trust, right?
Exactly.
I've heard horror stories of uncles, horror stories of fathers, So these are people that we trust. Not only do we have a sense of autonomy over ourselves, but we're trusting these people as well, that if in any case I'm not able to look after myself, this person will look out for me. This person will look after me, right? So having those two things completely shattered and destroys becomes a cognitive dissonance. And I'll just say that in plain terms, essentially, is that what you know has now been essentially removed from you. And you're like, okay, this is not what I grew up with. This is not what I know to be normal. Now it's all gone. So, it leads to a sense of worthlessness, a sense of hopelessness. All that can lead into depression. All that can lead into anxiety, where you're scared to go out. You're scared to go into public places. You're scared to trust people. PTSD, like I already mentioned before, and suicide is a big one as well. And I mean, that's the end road when you look at mental health. Is a lot of people that are not able to get the help that they need, or are really, really suffering, usually end up taking their own lives, because they see no hope in living anymore. So yes, there is a big correlation between sexual abuse and one's mental health and one's mental wellness, and it's detrimental. Essentially, it's detrimental to one's mental wealth and one's mental capabilities. Yeah, I hope that answers.
So thank you. Great answer.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that you mentioned that sometimes it can creep up. Those experiences can creep up and, just show up in our adult life. And then we're trying to deal with this experience that we have spent all those years repressing. And that was exactly my experience with how eventually I came to the point where I realized it was either end your life or get help, And I just think of that when the former failed, I realized that I had to go with the latter. But not everybody has been that lucky, and it's painful to realize that you can come out of this, but you were not able to get the help that you needed. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this, is to let people know that whatever experiences there are, at whatever point it creeps up on you, you can get help, you can get out of it, you can, come out of it, and you can still be here and, not get to extreme ends where you can't even live life anymore. Those experiences don't have to have that power over you for the rest of your life. So thank you. So how about people who may or may never have experienced any traumatic events in their lives? Is it possible that they can get into a state of a place where they can be mentally ill? And if yes, what are some of the things that can get them there?
Okay. So yes, definitely, outside of trauma and, sexual abuse, there is still that you might end up dealing with mental unwellness or mental illness at some point in your life. And that story in itself, I mean, I'm going to try not to go into all the science and the genetics of it, because we don't need that today. We don't have to get it today, just to make it a little bit simple for people and easy to understand. I'm going to take it in the biological aspect, psychological aspect, social aspect, and spiritual aspect. I tend to add because, of course, I'm a spiritual person, I'm a spiritual being, and I see myself as that. And so I add that on in effect to be a well-rounded person. So when you're looking at that, being well-rounded, these are the major aspects of what a person is. So your biological state, right? So that we're talking about your genes, your DNA. Some people are just predisposed to some illnesses, just like, things like diabetes sometimes runs in families, right? Some cancers run in families, right? So, I mean, when you say mental illness, that's essentially what it is. It's an illness, right? And that's what I try to tell. That's what I try to tell people, and some of my patients as well, so that they don't always just ride with that stigma that, oh no, there's something wrong with you. When someone has high blood pressure, they don't run away from it. They go to the doctor, like, can I get a medication to treat me and bring my blood pressure down, right? And then there are other things that you can do outside of medication to help you with that as well. So it's the same thing in mental illness. Biologically, some people are predisposed to some illnesses, and some of them, like depression, like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia as well, runs in families, right? And so people tend to pass them on to their offspring as well. When you look at things that can change your biology, or especially the biology of the brain, things like substance use, right? So illicit drugs, people who are taking so much cocaine and things like that can lead to your brain not really functioning as it should, and that can lead to mental illness as well. Other things are your environment, right? So we talked about the biological aspect, that's essentially nature. So we're talking about your environment, that's nurture, right? So nature and nurture, right? So your environment can have influence on how you do mentally and your mental health and your mental wellness as well. People that grew up in abusive homes, right? people that grew up in neglective homes where mother and father weren't really there, they didn't pay any attention to the children. People who grew up in homes where there was no structure. You see a lot of this in young children who grow up with no structure. They end up with ADHD, right? So things like that. The environment really has an impact. And again, circling back to trauma and sexual abuse, that as well is part of nature, or part of your environment and part of your experiences, right? If we look at the social aspect of things like work stress, something as simple as work stress can affect you mentally, right? You go home, you're irritable, you're angry, you take that out on your children, or you take that out on your wife or your spouse, right? Things like that. Having
I'm smiling because I've been guilty of that. Sorry.
You have a bad day at work, you come home and you're snapping at your spouse. I think we're all guilty of that. But even something as simple as that can be seen as, there's a rift in your mental wellness at that stage, right? You don't necessarily have to be, floridly psychotic or floridly manic for you to say, okay, there's something wrong with my mental state. That's what we're trying to get at. Right? A lack of social supports, that's huge as well. Especially for me, where I'm doing geriatrics and I'm dealing with a lot of old people. A lot of them are so lonely. They live alone. Their children are in different cities and they don't call. They don't have any friends to go out with. Nobody helps them to get groceries, things like that. Even retirement, when I see some patients who recently retired, is like they've worked their whole lives and now they don't know what to do with themselves. That leads again to loneliness. It can lead to anxiety, can lead to depression. So those are some of those things. And of course, we cannot forget or neglect the aspect of spirituality when we're talking about our mental health. Either a lack of spiritual well-being or negative spirituality can cause us to have problems with our mental health. I know you had talked about demon possession and things like that. Some people believe in that, some people don't, but I really think that, like I've tried to lay out here, mental health and mental well-being is a combination of so many things, right? And those four pillars are the ones that I usually use and how I try to explain it to my patients. That was long.
Okay, awesome. No, it's okay. It was long, but it was beautiful. It was enlightening, right? There are even like I got out some new information as well. And one of the things also that I thought about too is your specialization too, right? And that's another group of people that sometimes we tend to forget to talk about, old people. Especially for those of us that are in the that live in the Western world right now, and we see how this plays out, right? Where we're from, like an example of people in Nigeria, you would have maybe extended family members, other old people who live close by each other, and there's communication, as opposed to here where everybody's sort of in their own cocoon, right?
Exactly.
And that can impact someone's mental health. Now, there's another group of people that I'd also like to talk about, young children. Now, there was something you mentioned, which is that even from our pulpits, we've heard things like, if you're a Christian, then you can't be depressed. If you are, then something is wrong with you. Similarly, I have heard sometimes make comments around, well, you're just, what can bother a 12-year-old? What is getting you depressed? What do they know? Those kind of statements, right?
Yes.
So help us understand, is that something that can happen to children? Like, I mean, they're young, right? But can they get to the point where they can be mentally unwell?
So I think as adults, we forget that children or younger people have a life of their own that they're living, and they have their own unique challenges that they are going through. Take, for example, a teenager, right? They're just coming into themselves. They're just really discovering who they are. And I mean, I'm talking from personal experience. My teen years were not fun, right? And the biggest aspect of it was that I was of ethnic background, and now I'm living in the Western world where there are so many different things that you just don't know about, right? We do things differently where we're coming from, and people here, and especially kids can be mean. You know, kids can be very mean. They see you, they make fun of you. You know, you don't dress like they do, you don't look like they do. You know, bullying is
Your food smells differently.
Yes,
Your lawn smells differently.
You don't talk
My
like
daughter had been told,
right?
yeah, a kid told my daughter her food stinks and she should stop bringing it to school. And I said, well, tell them their food is bland. I was just like, it was just something that came out in the moment, out of anger of a parent.
Yes.
You know, but then later I went to her and I said, sometimes kids can be mean, but you know, you don't have to be mean back.
Kids
you know, you can tell them to have it pissed and they just might like it. I mean, who doesn't like jollof rice, right?
Right.
Anyway.
Exactly. So kids and young adults, they're going through so much. They're going through their own unique challenges in life, and I really think it behooves us to be sensitive to those things, right? I mean, being picked on for the way you talk. I mean, being picked on for the way you look. You can't help the way you look. Right? Hello, this is what God made me. What am I supposed to do? Racism is still there. I don't know if that's gonna ever go away. You know, so these are some of the things that people are going through. Funny, me, when I was younger, I got teased because my accent was different. So I changed my accent. Now I'm being teased that my accent is different as an adult. What do? You can't win, right?
Yeah.
So,
wow.
You know, so kids are going through a lot. A lot of them, they have difficulties making friends, and a lot of times finding yourself, it really does depend on the people you surround yourself with, right? Because it's in those, okay, she is like this and they are like that, I wonder how I am like, and you know, you try to make those comparisons and those and yeah, it's the people around you really do help you discover yourself. But when you don't have any friends, you're eating lunch alone in the bathroom by yourself, crying, you know, those things are difficult, and not having a sense of community, right? And then you get home and your parents don't understand you, so it's hard. It's really difficult, and I mean, I hope you can see how that can really affect you know, the teens and young adults as they're kind of progressing through life and moving through, especially if they are of ethnic background and living on this side of the world. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I really hope that there's a parent out there listening to this that maybe can, you know, go easy on their child,
I hope so.
You know, and realize that they can go through a lot. So there are a couple questions and we're going to take questions. Thank you again for everyone who's joined. But before we take questions, I just want to ask something. And if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the comments section below. So of all of these things we've heard, right, how traumatic experiences can impact mental health. Children can, you know, become mentally unwell due to bullying or whatever experiences that they feel at school, or just, you know, just the biology of trying to understand themselves as they grow. Puberty too, I hear, sometimes can, it can impact the psychological well-being as well sometimes, you know, all of that, all people. So then what are some of the things that we can do to help all of these groups of people, or other not to say that there might be a one approach to every single category, but what are some things that, you know, as individuals, as people, we can do to either protect ourselves, our mental well-being, or help our friends and families who maybe we have seen that might be struggling in one area or the other? What are some of the things that we can do?
Okay, so that's a great question. And because if we're talking about mental health and mental well-being, we need to discuss how can we actually maintain that. So, and like you said, you're right, that there is no one way to fix everything, right? And we have to look at this on a spectrum, right? You know, and mental health is a spectrum, and this is what I tell my patients all the time. You know, some people are on this end of the spectrum. They're, you know, struggling a little bit, but they're still managing to get up and go to work. You know, these are some of the ones I call my functioning depressed patients. They're not entirely, like, they're not 100%, but they still get up, they go to work, they manage, they come back home, they get the groceries done, They manage to take care of their physical health, shower, things like that. And then you have people on the opposite spectrum who are not functioning at all. They can't even hold down a job. They can't look after themselves by, alone. And then there are people in the middle as well. But generally speaking, no matter where people are on that spectrum, whenever they come in and they see me, and if I think maybe they need medication or not, I always tell them, eat healthy, exercise. These are really great things, not only for your physical body, it's great for your mind as well, right? Your body thrives on good food, fruits and vegetables, not burgers every day, right? Your body and your mind, it thrives on physical activity as well. It releases endorphins in the brain. It helps your brain structure. It helps with mental clarity. Even something as simple as going for walks. Going for a walk 30 minutes every day. I usually listen to podcasts or music as well. Those things are really, really helpful, right? Having a support system in place is priceless. Honestly, it is priceless. I don't think we were created to be an island, right? No one was created to be themselves. This is why we have friends. This is why we have uncles and aunties, brothers and sisters. And I think that's the way God really intended for it to be. And the way that he structured it is that we have supports in place. You need to have someone that you trust enough to talk to about difficult things in your life, right? Don't hold everything in. You need someone that you can talk to, be it a parent that understands you and your difficulties. It could be a sister, it could be an auntie, it could even be just a mentor. It could be someone you met at work, or someone you met at church. They're like, oh, I really like this person. I think they understand me. This is someone I think I can trust with kind of my issues, right? So that's really important, having someone that you're able to talk to as well. And again, going back to spirituality, positive spirituality is so good. Prayer is great. Reading Psalms is great. It's very encouraging. Self-help books. There's so many self-help books out there. Go to Indigo, go to the bookstore, go to the library, grab a book that talks about some of the difficulties that you're facing right now, and read them, right? Let them sink in, meditate on those things. All those things are really important. Something as simple as just sitting in a chair and listening to music. Music can be so therapeutic for your soul. Don't be listening to hard metal or like rock, headbanging. Don't do that. That one is not gonna help you, things like jazz, like my husband, he likes to just sit on the chair sometimes when he's stressed out, and he just listens to jazz, and that really helps him. So music really is something that can be therapeutic for people. Art therapy, right? I don't know if have you ever heard of adult coloring, like the coloring books for adults?
Oh, no.
I have.
Oh, actually, yes. No. I take that back. My sister was a doctor, and she got one as a gift, and she was showing it to me, but I didn't exactly pay attention. But now that you say it,
now I'm taking your mind back to it. It is so good. I myself have like 3 books. I haven't done it in a while, but I think I need to go back to it. And so adult coloring is a thing now, and it's a form of and that's another form of psychotherapy that you can actually practice on your own, is mindfulness. And really, it just gets you engaged. It gets your mind focused on one thing. And in that moment, you're just being. You're not thinking about, oh man, this, and oh my goodness, work, and the person is giving me a hard time, right? So it gets you really focused. So art therapy is great. Adult coloring is great. Pet therapy, some people like pets. And they, a dog or a cat or something like that. Those things are really great. Gardening can be therapeutic for you. So those are just some of the ways that I think some things we can engage in that doesn't necessarily depend fully on someone else to help us maintain our mental wellness.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We have learned so much. This is beautiful. So I'm going to take some questions, and then if we still have time after that, then we'll probably just touch on one more thing. Thank you to everyone who has joined us so far. Thank you. Money Redefined, Union Stitches, Yvette, Randall, thank you. So I'm going to take the first question here, which is, so Dr. T, do you think it's better for the mental health of seniors, I guess, for them to be in nursing homes or communities versus being at home. And okay, there's a follow-up here, so I'll read that version instead. It says, the reason I ask is in terms of loneliness at home versus being in seniors community. So which do you think is better in terms of helping seniors maintain optimal mental health?
That's an excellent question. Thank you to whoever asked that question. And where I love old people. So I love talking about mental health and mental wellness and in the elderly population. So going back to that question, it really depends on the situation, right? For us, and I think it's cultural. We like to keep our elderly people at home as long as possible. We look after them. Putting your senior, your mom, your dad, your grandmother in a home for us is almost taboo. Like, you're a horrible child. They looked after you and you have to look after them, so that's for us. And I get that, but the story is different for many different people, right? And I think the place that the elderly needs to be is where they're most happy. Some old people love being in seniors living. They love being in homes because they make friends. They go to a public area, in the home. They eat together with their friends. They talk about old times. Old people love talking about in my day, this and this and this happened.
Yeah.
They can reminisce together about that. They can play games together, card games, things of that nature. Some old people don't want that. They want to stay in their house that they grew up or that they raised their children in, and they want to stay there until they pass away. And a lot of times that's not the best. If they're physically and mentally capable, that's great. Leave them there if that's where they're happy. But some of them just can't do it, especially if they're getting something like dementia, right? They forget how to cook. They might burn the house down, if they leave something on the stove in the kitchen. So that's a safety issue, right? If that's where they want to be, that it's not the right place for them to be. So it's probably better to be in, maybe your child's home if they're able to look after you, right? Or go to a retirement living environment. So I think the short answer to that question is putting the person where they're most happy and where they're most comfortable, where they're most safe. I think that's the answer there.
Yeah, and thanks. Like, personally, I never thought about that perspective of where they're most happy, and the idea that some of them might actually prefer to be amongst people who are closer to their age, rather than just take that blanket approach to say, why would you? They took care of you. Why won't you take care of them? Having them in a senior's home does not make it any less caring for them, as long as the intent is to give them to provide them what gives them the most joy, as opposed to just kind of discarding them.
Exactly.
Hey, so thank you. Really good perspective.
No problem. If you look at older people, like as you age, right, you start losing your friends because people start dying, right? And that's
right. That in itself can impact their mental health.
Exactly. So at times, being where other people their age or similar in age are might be best for them as well. Yeah.
Awesome. And in case you're wondering about what she was referencing on the mental health spectrum, it means you haven't been on my website to read about why you should care about your mental health. So please go there, loudtalents's.org, and read about why you should care about your mental health and see what the mental health spectrum looks like. It is important that you know where you're at, okay?
Yes.
The goal, everybody deserves life on the green, is what I said there, and I'm saying that again. You deserve life on the green, okay? So there's another question here that I find really interesting. So Mindful Well You has a great 30-day mindfulness challenge ongoing. Okay, thank you for sharing that, Money Redefined. We'll look at that. And then, second question, which means that was the first question. Okay. Second question from the same person. Okay, thank you. So it says that, what do you think the impact of COVID has been on mental health well-being?
Oh,
beautiful question.
Oh my goodness, don't get me started. I am so busy because of COVID. I need, 3 months vacation. No, COVID has been really hard on everyone. COVID has been really, really hard on everyone. This COVID life is not it. And, I'm just asking, Lord, take it away. We need to go back to normal.
Amen.
Yes, take it away.
Yeah.
some of the ways that it's impacting people who were fine, who were mentally well, are now struggling. People have lost their jobs. People are stuck in the house. They can't go out. They can't do the things that they love to do. People are stuck with their family members who, you know, going to work gives them a break from. But now you're seeing each other every day. You have to deal with your problems. You have to deal with your differences, you know.
Yeah.
And that's on the lighter spectrum of how, you know, COVID has really affected people. You know, financial struggles, things of that nature. Right? Anxiety, you know, is it going to go away? Am I going to get it? And if I get it, will I die? You know, those are things that people are struggling with right now. When we look at the other extreme, are people who, you know, had mental health challenges and were somewhat doing okay. And now it's just like, nope, they're not doing well anymore. Their anxiety has gone through the roof. Their depression is now so much worse. You know, so even people, you know, who have things like schizophrenia, we find that they're doing worse in this period for whatever reason. Some of them it's because they can't get in to see doctors, right? They can't get into physicians. So it's really impacted people in so many ways, and you know, from one spectrum to the other, everything in the middle. It's been tough. The mental health folks are seeing it now. I mean, you have the frontliners who are dealing with, you know, you have COVID today, or we need to test you for COVID, and everybody's coming in wanting to be tested. And you know, you have those frontliners, and then you have us who are dealing with the, I guess we're the emotional frontliners or psychological frontliners who are helping people deal and manage with the backlash that COVID has had on people's mental health. So I hope that explains it. Yeah, it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy for anyone. And even physicians are now struggling, you know, with their mental health, with being burnt out, you know, just constantly having to look after other people without really time to look after yourself as well, right? So those are some of the challenges right now.
Okay. Awesome. So there's a question here that I believe probably also helps to maybe provide tips for people who might be in that state currently. So it says, can you share any tips for post-secondary students who have to study online alone? How do they deal with the loneliness and minimize the impact on their mental health?
Oh gosh, I just feel like high school is so far from me right now. I feel old, but really what I can say to that, I you know, I know people who are still in high school, still in university, and they're struggling with not able to go to class, see their professor, talk to them, ask them questions. You're stuck doing everything by yourself. That can be really difficult. I think just use the resources that are available to you. Any resources that, you know, your professor, your teacher is giving you, try to make use of those. But in order to build yourself a community, you need to reach out to others, reach out to people in your class, maybe set up a study group, right? Not only does that help you study better because, you know, you're bringing different things to the table in terms of knowledge, but, you know, before you start your study session, have 10 minutes where you just dedicate to just talking about how crappy everything is. And that in itself is therapeutic. Like, just have to create a safe environment for you to talk about, you know, this sucks. It's okay to talk about your professor if they suck. Just talk about it. Like, this professor is the worst. I don't like this, and this is horrible, right? It makes you feel like, you know, you're not alone. There are other people that are going through it, and that is so important right now, you know, with this pandemic that we're all going through. It's really important. So build yourself a community. If there's any way that you can ask for help from parents or, you know, older people, you know, find a mentor maybe that can help you through that. But the biggest thing is to try to form a community for yourself.
Awesome, thanks. So just to recap, because I wouldn't want us to exceed the 1 hour time up. Thank you so much. It's been a lot of learning. Just to recap, mental health is a state of well-being. Mental health is a state of well-being. All right, it's not. It doesn't necessarily mean crazy or anything. That in itself is labeling people, so don't do that, please. Um, Mental illness in itself is the absence of mental health or mental wellness,
Yeah.
right? It's the point where people are sick, and it's just like any other sickness. All right, so if you're not going to run away from the doctor for having diabetes or COVID, please don't run away from a doctor if you feel like you're having challenges with your mental health. Okay, seek help, and support systems are great. Children are going through so much; they can be mentally challenged as well, especially in cases where maybe they've been through traumatic experiences or they have been in a house that is filled with abuse, domestic violence, or they change countries. That impacts lots of kids that are, especially for those in this part of the world that we live in Canada here. I may not have all of it, but just trying to help people who maybe joined in later have some ideas of some of the things we've talked about. Old people can also be impacted. It's not 100% wrong if you choose to have your seniors in seniors home. It depends on what works for them and the situation that you have. These are some of the things that we have learned, and it's been amazing. If you're a post-secondary student and you have to study alone online, some of the things you can do to help keep yourself mentally well is create study groups, and in those moments talk about stuff that affects you guys as students. Again, seek support, reach out to people. So in all of this, we've learned the importance of talking about mental health. How then can we, for everybody who is here and everyone who's going to watch this video, how can we move this discussion forward and make it easier to have more of these conversations?
Perfect. With regards to that, how do you make it easier to address the topic of mental health, mental wellness, and what have you? It's important that you are sensitive to people who might be struggling, right? Don't be judgmental of them. If for any reason they're able to actually come to you and tell you that these are the struggles that I'm having with my mental health, I'm sad all the time for no apparent reason. I'm scared of everything. I'm always anxious, or I'm starting to hear voices even though there's nobody there, or I'm starting to see things and other people tell me they can't see it. If people are able to come to you and let you know that, be it a friend or family member, be sensitive to what they're going through. It is not easy, number one, to have a mental health challenge or issue. And not only that, to come and actually voice it to someone. So be sensitive to what people tell you about the mental health. Try not to perpetuate or propagate the stigma that mental health or mental unwellness or mental illness means someone is crazy, or that's someone you shouldn't associate yourself with, or that you should stay away from them. You're doing them a disservice that way. Talk about ways that you think you can help them. If it's just to talk, if that's all they need, be that listening ear for them, right? If you see that it's something completely out of your hands, there are so many resources online that you can help them to access, right? Or even just going to your family doctor and telling them and saying, oh, please, can I, get a request to see a counselor, or, maybe they need a psychiatrist to be seen and to assess them. But I mean, even before you get to that, there are so many things online, like counseling online. Regina Family Services has free counseling. And you can access them online, and you can, go in. I think nowadays with the COVID, they're doing a lot of their stuff online as well. The Caring Place is a great place here in Regina, where people can go and ask for anonymous counseling sessions, right? There's the crisis. The crisis line is there, and they are 24/7. They're there 24/7.
There's the Kids Helpline as well.
Yes.
The Kids Helpline,
The Kids Helpline, exactly. That's there as well. And of course, the Suicide Helpline. All you have to do is text connect to 686868, and there's someone there to talk to you. So that's really what it is. And just seeing mental illness as, like I said before, it's an illness. It's like someone who has diabetes is not going to be, you know, worried to let their doctor or someone else know that, oh yeah, I have to take insulin because I have diabetes, or you know, I have to take this medication because I have high blood pressure, or you know, I have visual problems like glaucoma, I need to use eye drops. You know, it is an illness. And I think the more we're able to see it that way, the easier it becomes for us to have the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been an interesting time with you. It's been an amazing time with everyone who joined. Thank you, guys. Thank you for me. Thank you, Tosin. Thank you for being here.
Thanks,
Did I
everyone.
miss anybody else? Thank you, MZ. Thank you, House of Exclusive Fabric. Thank you, Danu. Thank you, Money Redefined. Thank you. There will come a time, all things people I may not be able. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for being here. So, guys, we've heard it. So please, let's take what we've learned. If you're struggling, please reach out. Reach out. Reach out. There is no shame in saying, you know, something is wrong and I need help. All right. There's no shame in that. Okay. And
if you know someone, if you see me on the street, you have a question, please don't be afraid to approach me. I think I'm approachable. Just come and ask me. I'll do my best.
Or if you want to send a message, that's fine as well. I really hope that we can take this message on. People, we need to undo the culture of silence. Okay, it's not helping us.
No.
If we can speak out to one another and help one another be better, then I mean, I don't know why, you know, we would even bother being around each other to begin with. Okay, so thank you so much, guys, for being here. Thank you, Dr. Tayo. It's really been an interesting session.
You're welcome.
One topic I'm looking to do that maybe I'll if I can find someone else to do it, or you can recommend someone for us or yourself, is depression and Christianity. I want to hone in on that one specifically. So I don't know when next, but thank you, guys. This happens once every month. And so you'll forgive me while I'm still trying to figure out the specific time, but it will always be on a Sunday. I just don't know yet if it's going to be every third Sunday or every fourth Sunday, but once a month, we would have someone come in and talk to us about, you know, something that would help us learn how to undo the culture of silence that has plagued us. So thank you once again, guys. Have a great week, and I will see you next week, and we keep trolling each other online.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. Thanks, Anita.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.